Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 12, Species 10C. Well, we start out with a close-up of several different eyeballs, which I suppose somebody thought was stylistically cool. I thought it was really weird. Yeah.
Well, they have an obsession with eyeballs in this series because earlier seasons of Discovery and Picard, they like yanking them out. So I don't know what it is about eyeballs. At least they weren't yanking any out, so they saw value in eyeballs this time.
It's still really weird.
Yeah.
Like, they think this stuff is so creative and just so clever, and it's not. It reminds me of some pretentious art school project that a kid would do.
Or like an early film student.
Yes.
And these people working on this show are supposed to be professionals in the industry.
Well, I think I looked, the writer on this episode is like 42 years old or something like that, so that's plenty of time to get better at your craft. And this episode sucked. I'm just gonna say it. It was stupid.
For me, and I realize we haven't gotten into the details yet, but I appreciated what they were trying to do, at least so far, this species, because we do actually get to sort of see species, what is it, 10C?
Yeah, 10C.
So I appreciate they weren't humanoid-looking things, and they were trying to establish some sort of communication thing, but it's just the way they went about it, like everything else this series does, was just so stupid. So I don't want to rob the thunder of going through and describing the plot, but...
Well, here's the plot. Okay, so they send the peace hydrocarbon, or whatever it was, to species 10C.
Well,
the people on Discovery.
We have to explain before that. So they broke down these hydrocarbons into, like, was it 16 different emotions, feelings?
Something like that.
And then so the concept was that this species was using these hydrocarbons, and I even hate saying that, hydrocarbon. I'm not going to call it that. I know that's what they called it, but like in real biology, this is just stupid what they're doing. I'm just going to call it, they had these 16 different feelings or emotions that they were communicating. And they were trying to use that as a base for a language. And then so they found the one that meant peace. And please continue.
So anyways, so they sent out what appeared to be a fleet of Eves from Mollie to spray the peace pheromone all over the place on this water tentacle that, or water, I don't even know what the hell that was.
Well, I think they said it was like the orb.
Yeah, the orb. Oh god. So the Eves were spraying this shit all over the orb, and a water tentacle came out and ate the Eves. And then the water tentacle took the Star Trek Discovery as well. And then the show ended and everybody was happy. No, that didn't really happen that way. But it would have been better if it had. Because, I mean, after that, they're in this water tentacle, and they're trying to figure out how to communicate with species 10C based on this pheromone-based language. Species 10C was trying to use a math-based language to communicate as an intermediary language between their own and whatever language they assume that those idiots on Star Trek Discovery use. So then they said, apparently there's this math-based language called Linkos that or Linkos, whatever, that the dummies on the Discovery are going to use to try to communicate with species 10C.
It was weird when they even got to that point, because I don't know, they were trying to explain something, like they put an image of one of the elements, I don't know, holographically out there, and then somehow Michael Burnham figured out they were trying to communicate in 3 dimensions, and so she like spun this thing to try to get it to line up, and then I think it was Detmer, I can't guarantee that, but it was somebody, I might have been Detmer, was explaining how, it's like star charts are 2D, and I'm scratching my head going, I don't know, maybe like on naval vessels they're 2 dimensions, but in space travel, they're always 3-dimensional star charts. I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. But it was weird because like Michael Burnham she was rotating this thing, and then I couldn't tell what she was doing. Like when she finally did it, things lined up and then all these colors fell into place.
Yeah.
She was trying to explain they were trying to communicate in 3 dimensions. And I mentioned this during the episode, because first of all, I don't even know what she was trying to state there. But secondly, as soon as she started mentioning language in 3 dimensions, in the 90s, there was this series that was around that was created from the notes from Gene Roddenberry, and it was called Earth Final Conflict. And there was this alien race called the Talons. Their written language was a 3-dimensional language. And in addition to it being 3 dimensions, there was also a feeling component when you, as it was explained in the series, you weren't reading so much left to right or up to down. It wasn't a mechanical thing. It was an experience, the language. And the way Michael Burnham was talking and the rest of them were talking about this language, it just felt a lot like the way that I remember the Talon language being explained in the 90s.
So this week's better show that they ripped off was Earth Final Conflict.
If anybody can explain what exactly Michael Burnham did by rotating that thing in 3 dimensions, and then somehow there was a light bulb that appeared, and somehow it made sense, and then they decided they were actually trying to communicate in this simpler language. But I could not follow what she was doing other than she was rotating something in 3 dimensions, and then magically everything lined up and a bunch of colors came on, and I have no idea. So please, somebody explain that, because maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I have no idea what that was about.
Meanwhile, also, Saru is rather disconcerted because he was basically verbally smacked down by the president of Navarre during this conversation, this professional conversation. So, he was talking to Michael Burnham about how upset he was about that. And she's saying that Vulcans tend to overcompensate in public, especially when it comes to relationships. And Sarek used to do that all the time, and it used to drive her nuts. And I'm like, oh, okay, in the middle of this first contact situation, upon which all life on Earth and Navarre depends, you're going to be talking about this crap, but whatever. Species 10C, apparently they like the 4 + 5 = 9 equation. that the people on Discovery communicated at them. So they send over what appears to be a capsule to, I guess, take some of the representatives from Discovery over to, I don't know where, to communicate with.
Do you know what that reminded me of? Remember Mork from Ork?
Oh my god, his egg?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what that reminded me of, was Mork from Ork egg. I thought Mork was going to come out.
Okay, that would have been hilarious. It would have made the show worth watching at that point, but no, that's not what happened. On this little outing, the president of the Federation is going to take Saru and Michael Burnham with her because they're just the greatest ever, and they're uniquely qualified to deal with this situation. Saru because of his linguistic skills, and Michael Burnham because she's some sort of xenoanthropologist. Oh, okay.
They just keep saying that. It's not true, but they keep saying it.
She's taken the Navarre president as well, and she also said she wanted to take the Earth president with her. Earth president declines, because if she did go, then she wouldn't be able to be helping Book and Tarka do their bullshit. Which brings us back around to that stuff. So, the president of the Federation, Saru, Michael Burnham, and the president from Navarre, they all get in the capsule and go to communicate with Species 10C. And they're doing this, and it's going pretty well. And they're communicating that the DMA has caused them great terror. And they're about to actually communicate what the DMA is doing in the Alpha Quadrant.
Was it great terror or great sadness?
No, it was terror.
Okay, because later on they did like a greater than and then a sad.
Well, it said that they communicated that the DMA was causing them terror, and then Species 10C communicated back that was sad for them.
Gotcha.
So from that, they were able to establish that Species 10C does have empathy. So they were about to communicate that the DMA was about to destroy 2 more planets. Meanwhile, on Book and Tarka's ship, it's very obvious to anybody with half a brain that Tarka is getting ready to screw over everybody else just so that he could get what he wanted and get to that other universe where his friend is waiting, which meant he needed that energy source from the DMA controller, and he was willing to sacrifice the lives of everybody there, including everybody on Discovery, all the Species 10C, everybody on Earth, and Navarre. He didn't care, as long as he got what he wanted. Book being this empath that he is, how is it that he didn't pick up on this? I don't know. Maybe he has to choose to open himself up to the feelings of other... I don't know. But he missed out on this. And they've got Jet Reno still locked up there. She picks up on it. She sees Tarka's equations. She knows what he's doing. And she communicates to Book what's going on. And Book does confront Tarka. And it turns violent. And of course, it's too late because well, I mean, Tarka's protected himself. He had some sort of force field around him that wouldn't allow Book to touch him. So when Book tries to shoot him, it ricochets back at him. And so Tarka has now got Book and Jet Reno locked up behind some force field. And it took them like this entire time over on Discovery to finally realize that Reno was gone. She's been gone all day. They couldn't find her, but then they finally realized that they've got a problem, freaking idiots. Yeah, and Zora was complaining that she had a feeling that something was wrong and she'd learned to trust her feelings. So, by the time they figured out that Book and Tarka's ship is attached to the hull, way too late, because just as the idiots from Discovery are about to communicate to Species 10C, that's when Tarka shoots at them. He appeared to burn a hole through the orb, and he was heading for the power source for the DMA controller, and that's essentially where the show left off this week. Everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. The way the story has been handled from the very beginning of the season has just felt like it was aimed at middle schoolers. Like people with the emotional intelligence and actual intelligence of someone who's in middle school. Because the behavior of a lot of the characters is very emotion-driven, just like you would have with a teenager. The logic used is not something you would see ever in any military anywhere that was successful in anything. Let alone an exploration ship out in space going on a first contact. I mean, that's just ridiculous the way these people are behaving. You're in the middle of a critical time, and they're talking about their feelings with their relationship that has absolutely nothing to do with the task at hand. I'm not even sure that the show makes me angry anymore so much it's like nails on a chalkboard to watch it, if that even makes sense. It's horrible. It's painful.
We paused it like 5 or 6 times. It was like the episode was like 50 some minutes, and we had to pause it like 4 or 5 times because we can watch it to a point, and then the stupid level gets so high that we have to pause it. Otherwise, nothing else will come into our brain because it's like there's a stupid wall around our brain. So we have to let it fall back down, and then we can hit the pause, unpause it, and then we can watch more of it.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, when Jet Reno was trying to tell Book that he was making mistakes by trusting Tarka, she started relaying a story about her dead wife and some crewmen that she kept alive because of her own selfishness. And then she was telling Book that pain makes you make dubious choices. It's just the oversimplification of the messages and how they're relayed to you, they're telling you what you're supposed to be learning from this, as opposed to allowing you to draw your own conclusions from what you've watched.
Well, they even had a scene in the episode. And I've been making this criticism of Michael Burnham for a long time. And there was a commenter last week that challenged me a bit on this about, all this growth that Michael Burnham has done. In this episode, I forget that they're talking about one of these many things. And Michael Burnham says something like, well, that's what my experience being captain has taught me. And if you didn't know this character, you might say, okay, that makes sense. And this is the response, I think, to that commenter and just in general. I didn't have a problem with the concept of Michael Burnham. Even after she mutinied and all that, I thought it was horrible, but I thought maybe they had an arc for her. If Michael Burnham, if we were actually seeing her learn stuff, so not now her sitting there going, well, all this experience I've learned is being captain. What experience? This is your time to shine. This would be a time when if she was still Commander Burnham or Citizen Burnham, and for her to make mistakes and then learn from them, because all of her growth, all of her professional growth, people are shoving into that 1 year last season that we didn't see most of, where she landed a year before the Discovery showed up from that time vortex. And somehow magically that 1 year where she grew her hair long and we saw little snippets, people are projecting their own story ideas into that 1 year to show how she's developed. And I think that's completely...
That's dangerous because they are projecting their own stuff that was not actually there into her situation.
And maybe it'd be a better story.
Well, it probably would have been a better story. But, and this is just my theory on this, if we actually accepted people for who they were instead of what we wish they were, I think there'd be a lot fewer divorces in this country because people go into things and they project emotions and beliefs and all sorts of different things onto other people that aren't actually there. So you need to actually be realistic with what you're looking at when you look at a certain person.
And to me, when she said that line this week about, well, that's why I've learned being captain, I don't know the exact wording, but it was something like that. And that rubbed me such the wrong way. It's like, no, this experience right here, this is where we start to see if you're going to have character growth. This is the moment you show character growth. You don't just talk about character growth. And as the person I was interacting with was trying to explain all this character growth that happened in season 3, I didn't see much of that.
I didn't see any of it.
I've heard, in narrative, and obviously people outside of the production crew, watching the episodes, all this character growth. Show me. See, that's my criticism. Instead of Michael Burnham talking about this character development she did as being captain, and she's only been captain for a short period of time. No, why don't you actually use this event as something to learn from, and then in the future you can talk about this event? Because she does not have enough experience on screen for people to be making these wild, I consider them to be wild assertions about how much she's changed. I think they're reading a bunch of stuff into that season 3 beginning when she had that year with Book and we didn't get to see a lot of it. We were just told she really went through some character changes through there. No, don't just tell me she did. I have to see that. And that it goes back. The reason I brought this up is because you were talking about how in this episode they keep talking about stuff instead of showing us stuff.
Yeah.
And that just, start showing stuff. Don't just talk about it.
Yeah, because like we talked about before, her opportunity to show that she had grown as a character was when Book confronted her about the Klingons. Except her response was...
doubling down.
Yeah, I had an intrinsic understanding of Klingon culture. That was her opportunity to take responsibility and say I was wrong and this horrible thing happened because I made a terrible mistake.
And I learned and I won't make that same mistake again. Then what she's doing with this new species and her being on the opposite side of Book...
That would have shown character growth.
It would have shown why she's on the opposite side. But when she doubled down with that Klingon intrinsic crap...
Oh, God.
I don't understand the people who are defending this and the character growth. No, when she doubled down on that intrinsic Klingon crap, that showed she had zero character growth. I blame the writers for that. Because had she not have said that and she said, Book, I made a mistake, I grew from that. Oh my gosh, we actually saw a character development moment from Michael Burnham.
Yep.
We can now see how she's grown and we can understand why she's on the other end of this whole, the way she's handling this being less military, less aggressive, and Book's on the military end of this thing. But no, they robbed us of that, and somehow people are still asserting all this character growth from her. She's had many opportunities to show character growth. And again, this is a made-up character, so when I'm criticizing Michael Burnham, this is not a real person. But the writers had several chances to show character growth, and when they tried to pull this, well, all my experience as being captain, no, she's not been captain for all that long, and I haven't seen much experience from her at all.
No.
I don't understand why people defend this character. It's not a real person. I wish they would have done a better job. Even at this point, they still could try to give her character growth, but they refuse to do so. They just assert that she's had character growth and she's drawing on the character growth, the experiences she had before. But she didn't have any growth then. You got to give her some experiences to show that she's grown. It's a side tangent, but between the commenter last week on one of our videos, engaging, which I appreciated the conversation, but you have to show me stuff on screen, not her talking about growth, but showing character growth, and you can't just dump it in that season 3 year with Book that we saw only glimpses of. You can't do that. That's not character growth. That's just referring to, she said she grew during that time. Yeah, but we've been robbed of that as an audience. That doesn't count.
Agreed. Yeah, if you want to see a strong woman of color who has a good character growth arc, you should watch The Peacemaker. I'm not going to spoil anything by giving any more details than that, but I thought that show... I was surprised. It was actually really good. With, was it John Cena?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I agree. I was expecting to watch one episode of that and to just go, whatever. It's a bit crude, don't get me wrong. It's kind of got that Doom Patrol crudeness.
And some violence, too, some gore.
Quite a bit of violence.
But
it was pretty good, though.
Yeah. The character growth that you see in that show, it dwarfs anything we get from Star Trek Discovery. So, if that's what you're actually looking for, is a good character arc like that, then I would recommend watching The Peacemaker. Don't watch Star Trek Discovery, because the good qualities that we had from Book, he was basically stripped of those in this episode. He just came across as an idiot.
He's useless. See, when we were talking, so I'm going to make up some writing for Discovery here. I know I probably shouldn't, but we, through the dialogue, we as the audience, were figuring out that Tarka was lying.
Mm-hmm.
Book, who's supposed to be an empath, was 3 to 6 feet away from him at times. And he wasn't picking up on any of this. Now, the argument could be, and I'm making this up for Discovery, maybe that personal force field that Tarka had, maybe it was shielding Book's ability to empathically pick up on what was happening.
Or maybe Book has to choose to use those abilities. I don't know.
Yeah, but he was starting to question Tarka. You think he would have started to use his abilities to query him. So to me, that didn't make sense. And then going back to the communication with the alien, as I said at the start of the video, I give them credit for what they were trying to do. They failed miserably. I mentioned the Talon 3D language that I was getting some strong hints of. They also were using some sort of lights, and I was getting a Close Encounters of the Third Kind type thing. But again, they never explained what they were doing. Well, they gave some babble talk, but they never gave me... I never comprehended what the lights had to do and how that related to the pheromone stuff they were sticking out.
Yeah.
So they had lots of ideas here that could have been cool. I mean, there was a concept here of communicating with an alien species that was very unlike our own, and we were trying to put together a way to communicate. This could have been very interesting. I mean, it could have been a very Star Trek type moment, but it was all fragmented. It was, some of it was nonsensical. It felt like it borrowed from other pieces of science fiction, and it offered very little of its own.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm getting sick of this series doing this. They need to, well, first of all, this series is done. There's no way you can fix this series.
No.
But with Strange New Worlds, that's a new series. They need to get different writers. They need to get real science consultants. Because if they don't, and by the way, it doesn't look like they are, I think Strange New Worlds is going to be the same crap show that we've had with these other 2 live-action series. And I don't understand. Don't they want to keep their jobs? Like, I realize they're egotists at the top of this secret hideout situation.
Yeah.
But don't they want to keep their jobs and their contract? Hire somebody who knows what they're doing and give them a couple of episodes so that maybe they can try to write things. I mean, we're spending most of our review here complaining about this show and showing better pieces of work because this show is garbage. It's garbage. The ideas that they had for communicating, I thought were cool. Well, I shouldn't say cool. That's being too kind. I thought they could have went somewhere interesting, but they didn't. And as I said, there were 2 pieces of science fiction, Earth Final Conflict and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that this reminded me of, and then they slopped their own crap in there, and then you have this Mork from Ork egg that came down. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, the Mork from Ork, but that's exactly... They were stealing from everything else, so why not Mork from Ork? I don't know, I just... And then,
well, that water tentacle reminded me of the Abyss.
Yes, I mean, it even looked like the one from the Abyss.
I know.
So, like, even that was stolen from something else. You know, even, like, Jet Reno, she like, apparently as she was getting captured, she grabbed some comm badge or something and hid it in her sleeve, and she was powering it with licorice. I'm not exaggerating. She got a piece of licorice from Book, and she was using that to power a communication device. And then she gave some explanation. I don't know, maybe it made sense, maybe it didn't. I didn't care. It just seems stupid to me.
Yeah.
This whole Discovery is written stupidly. And anybody who likes this show, if you like it, I guess I'm challenging you. Do you like what's on screen, or are you writing filler pieces to repair the pieces of what they present to you that don't make sense? Because this series makes no sense. It doesn't. If you think it does, you are adding pieces to this to make it make sense. And I wish they would hire you on CBS, because then maybe you could fix this crap. But this stuff doesn't make sense.
No.
Every week I'm getting sick and tired of doing the same shtick here every single week. This stuff isn't getting any better. It's stupid. Michael Burnham, as I said in the video we made together, she's a fatally flawed character that's toasted. She's got these qualities that no matter what she does are always going to bring her character down. That's the classic definition of fatally flawed. That's what she is. And you saw it in this episode. They're trying to present she's this calm captain that's learned from her experiences. No, what experiences? What experiences? She had a chance. I already went into that. I'm not going to do it again. I am sick and tired of this show. I think it has one more episode, and hopefully this crap is done. I'm sick of it. It's garbage. This is a garbage television show.
Well, here's my suggestion to the writers. If this isn't how it goes down, then they're idiots. In that next episode, I think that the only person who can communicate with Species 10C is Book.
Book makes sense.
Because we've seen him communicate with other creatures using his empath powers. If he doesn't utilize them now in this situation...
He'll never use them.
Yes, then there is no point in him even having them except at the beginning of his run on the show because of story.
Yep. When he was carrying those animals with him.
Yeah. Because we really haven't seen much of that since then.
No, Tarka was pulling the wool over his eyes, and he's just sitting there going, duh!
Well, again, maybe it has to be other animals. I don't know. But, yeah, if he doesn't use that in this situation to express to Species 10C the sorrow he feels over the loss of his planet, then there is no use for him to ever use those abilities.
Yep.
Ever. And
it's like they forgot that he has them.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's all I have to say about that. I would love to hear anybody else's thoughts on this. A lot of what these writers do, it really makes me scratch my head, like, what the hell? So, I would love to hear other people's interpretations of that. Maybe we can all piece this together. Anyways, thanks for listening, and we will do this again for the next episode. It probably won't be up immediately after the show airs next week, because the old man and I are going to be moving, finally into our own place, and that is going to be quite the interesting 500 miles there, 500 miles back kind of bullshit. So we appreciate everybody being patient, and we will definitely get this up as soon as we have gotten moved. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you in about a week and a half.
Take care.